You'll be shocked by how I got out of this situation. Let me start from the beginning. Finally divorced. Glasses clinking. She posted like she'd just won the lottery, except the prize was walking away from me. The caption under her photo said it all. #freedom looks good on me. She was holding a champagne glass and smiling like she'd just won a major game. And I was the prize she'd finally let go of. And had the nerve to wear sunglasses like it was a sunny little triumph. The post got 58 likes, 7 laugh reacts, and a comment section full of her brunch squad hyping her up with lines like, "You go, girl," and "about damn time." I was sitting alone at our lake house when I read it. Actually, scratch that, my lake house. She never noticed I moved the deed into my name a year ago. Slipped it into something called the Silver Pine Heritage Trust, and she didn't bat an eye. She thought she was being strategic, waiting until after our 25th anniversary to file. Her lawyer must have told her that would lock in certain spousal rights. What she didn't know was that the moment I overheard her whisper into her phone, "He's so clueless, I swear," I started preparing for this. Reading that post? It tasted like biting a penny dipped in vinegar. Cold, sharp, familiar. It wasn't that she ended it. I saw that coming. It was the way she paraded it around, loud and messy, like she wanted an audience while I bled out. What she had no idea, I'd already dealt with the pain and tucked the memories far away. She was waltzing around what she thought was a dying man, not realizing I'd already buried that version of myself months ago. 2 minutes after her post went up, our son, Miles, texted me. "Miles, what's going on?" Me. Just let her have her victory lap. He didn't write back. He's 29. Smart enough to know the difference between a sprint and a marathon. He knows how I play the long game. And hey, if you're still listening, you're part of the rare few who actually stick around. Most people don't. But if this hit you somewhere deep, go ahead and subscribe. Helps the crew out, and it costs you nothing. Trust me, there's a lot more where this came from. Anyway, back to Marissa. She thought she was on top of the world. Posing with ring lights, clinking mimosas, soaking up compliments from some gym rat named Trevor who kept telling her she had refined energy. Meanwhile, I was sipping Glenlivet in a house she legally couldn't step foot in, watching her little charade from behind a digital fortress she didn't even know existed. I pulled up her post again, just for entertainment. Taryn, her ride or die, left a comment. "I hope you cleaned him out, Queen Crown." Clean me out? She couldn't even find the vault. Her lawyer must have assumed I was the sentimental type, the guy who folds in court, tears up over old wedding photos, begs to keep the family dog. What he didn't know was I'm the kind of guy who has backups of backups, who labels secret folders with names like Project Blackstone and Ashfall Protocol. I'm the guy who can sleep just fine on a pull-out couch while assets quietly migrate to safer ground like geese heading north before winter. She thought her post was the finish line. To me, it was the starting whistle. I logged off Facebook, got up, and walked over to the safe hidden behind the bookshelf. Opened it up. The folder inside hadn't been touched in over half a year. Everything still sealed, crisp, ready. Trust documents, a detailed timeline, notarized transactions, and one envelope labeled, "For Marissa, in case of emergency delusion." She figured she was walking away with everything. Truth was, there was nothing left to take. Well, nothing I hadn't already given away. Just not to her. It all started with a laugh. A soft, mean little laugh I hadn't heard from her in years. Not aimed at me, at least. I had dozed off in the recliner, sore back acting up again. She was in the kitchen, on speakerphone, not realizing the hallway carried every word like a confession booth with the curtain drawn just enough. "I mean, he still thinks this is just a rough patch," she said. Silence. Then laughter. "No, I swear," she went on. "He asked if I wanted to go up to the cabin next weekend." Another pause. Her tone shifted. "If you play your cards right," she giggled, "I might bring you instead." I didn't move a muscle. When she went to bed, I waited. 10 minutes. Then 20. Finally, I slipped out of the recliner and walked down the hall like a whisper in a cemetery. I sat down at the desk, fired up my old laptop, and opened a folder I hadn't looked at since I stopped consulting years ago. Renamed it, Failsafe Directive Alpha. You don't get to 63 without collecting a few contacts and a few regrets. I had both. Passion, maybe not. But process? I had that down cold. That night, I combed through our tax returns going back 10 years. Ran numbers. Cross-referenced asset titles. Dug into the Roth IRAs, the retirement funds, and the dusty parcel of land in Arizona that quietly doubled in value while she showed off backsplash tiles and spa energy. Next morning, she kissed me on the cheek and said, "You should shave today." I looked her dead in the eye and smiled. "You know what? You're right. I think I will." Then I called Russell. Russell and I served together back in '94. These days, he wears custom suits and whispers estate law into the ears of men who made their money and their mistakes. He knows how to clean a financial crime scene before the body's even cold. I asked if he could meet. He didn't ask why. 10 days later, I was in his office, and he slid a yellow legal pad across the desk. "This is everything you'll need to move," he said. "Piece by piece. Clean. Legal. No red flags. Just patience." I gave him a nod. Russell leaned back in his chair and asked, "How bad is it?" I stared out the window. "She thinks I have no idea." He let out a small laugh. "Then she's already lost." That whole next year, I basically became a ghost inside my own home. Smiling, agreeable, forgettable. Marissa had her girls' nights, her brunches, her wine-fueled Zoom calls that ran a little too long into the night. While she was busy living her best life, I was quietly moving our non-liquid assets into 2 airtight, irrevocable trusts, one under a shell corporation, the other tucked inside a philanthropic LLC, where I was listed simply as an unpaid advisor. On paper, I didn't own the cabin, the lake house, or the land out in Flagstaff anymore. Legally, I was just connected, like a ghost with an office key. She bought new curtains, laughed about retirement goals, talked like we were still rowing in the same direction. I sat at the dinner table every night. I smiled when she smiled. I washed the dishes, made small talk, played my part. But every time I looked at her across that table, I kept asking myself, is she waiting on the right time? Or the right attorney? Didn't matter. I was already ahead of her. Started logging everything in a black Moleskine notebook. Handwritten. Careful. Every single move. Every document shuffled. Every name involved. Like I was chronicling a crime scene. Because I knew the day would come when someone would ask, "When did you know?" And I needed to be able to flip to the page, point to the minute. It was when she called me safe. She said it during another one of her late-night speakerphone chats, the kind she thought I was too old or too tired to overhear. "He's not exciting," she told someone, "but he's safe. He'll never leave." She was half right. I didn't leave. I just quietly started building the exit. For her. The cafe she picked for brunch looked like Pinterest threw up in it. String lights dangling in broad daylight. Avocado toast for $22. Servers who looked like they had philosophy degrees and emotional trauma. She fit right in. Wearing oversized sunglasses indoors and a coral scarf that made 0 sense for the weather. She laughed over her second mimosa with Taryn and Elena like she was auditioning for Real Housewives. Midlife Crisis Edition. Right in the middle of the Eggs Benedict and some girl power nonsense, she dropped it. Like it was just another joke. "He's going to cry when he sees what I'm asking for." The table howled. Taryn nearly choked on her grapefruit spritzer. "Wait, seriously? What did your lawyers say?" Marissa gave this smug little grin. "With our marriage length and his income over the years," she said, "I could basically own him." Then she pulled out her phone and showed them a picture of Trevor. Shirtless. Tan. The kind of guy who probably had more gym memberships than books in his apartment. "This," she said, "this is what I really deserve." Her tone? That of someone who just beat the system. They all nodded like they'd just been handed gospel truth. Not one of them asked where Trevor lived, what he did besides lifting weights and flexing for Instagram, or whether he had the bandwidth for a woman pushing 60 with a wine habit and more debt than self-awareness. Meanwhile, 3 hours north, I was sitting in the cabin, sipping from a French press and thumbing through a manila folder. I called Russell. No response yet. I told him. "She's coming in hot," he warned. That's exactly what I wanted. Marissa might have had the mimosa buzz and Instagram bravado, but I had something better, bank statements. 4 of them, from 4 different banks, each tied to names she'd never seen. Names she wouldn't recognize until discovery, if it ever came to that. There was a time, years ago, when I might have tried to fix us. Counseling. Second chances. The whole Hail Mary routine. But those days got buried under years of feeling like a wallet with ears. Marissa didn't fall for another man. She fell for a vision of her life without me in it. And now she was banking on the court system to make that fantasy real. Her lawyer, Leon, some guy who looked like he sold used cars with divorce on the side, sent over the first settlement draft. It wasn't a proposal. It was a demand letter. Full alimony. 70% of everything we'd built. The main house. Partial control of the lake property, which, of course, she didn't realize she hadn't had a legal claim to in over a year. It ended with, "We expect your client will want to resolve this quickly and quietly." I printed the email, tacked it to the wall of the cabin. Then I called Russell again. Let them think I'm cornered. Let them think I'm scared of going to court. Just make sure we don't miss a single deadline. He chuckled on the other end. They think you're stalling because you're emotional. I sipped my coffee. I'm not stalling out of fear. I'm stalling because I'm organized. Back at brunch, Marissa kept playing the lead in the sitcom she'd written for herself. "He's just too soft," she said with a shrug. I got tired of feeling numb. Elena leaned in like it was juicy gossip hour. "So, what are you going to do once the money's yours?" Marissa twirled her straw like she was starring in a teen drama. "Move in with Trevor. Buy something by the beach. Maybe even go blonde." They raised their glasses. Mimosa number 4. Or so I'm told. She had no idea her name had quietly disappeared from the land deed. No clue that Trevor, her beach-bodied rebound, was still legally hitched, and that his wife, God bless her sharp instincts, had slipped into my DMs 2 weeks ago after stumbling across Marissa's flirty selfies stashed in his cloud account. She also didn't realize that the documents she so confidently mailed to me were actually helping me time her overreach down to the second. Marissa thought she was sprinting toward liberation. What she didn't know was the bridge she was tearing across had been slowly hollowed out, plank by plank, by the same quiet man she left behind. I wasn't up there in the cabin sulking. I was sipping coffee, reading, and waiting. Not to react. To strike. She strutted into that courthouse like it was her moment on the catwalk, like the judge was handing out trophies for most patient wife. Her words, not mine. She once called me a dolman in outdated jeans. She was wearing a cream-colored blazer that probably cost more than my grocery bill for the month, draped over some silky blouse. Her heels clicked down the hallway like a countdown clock to her imagined win. Right behind her came Leon, Mr. Greased Lightning himself, carrying a leather portfolio and smirking like he was auditioning for a cable courtroom drama. You could almost hear him rehearsing the word objection in his head, like it was going to fix everything. I showed up 5 minutes early. No entourage. No fanfare. Didn't need it. Russell met me at the courthouse door and handed me a folder. "We're not here to fight," he said. "We're here to clarify." The courtroom? Cold and colorless, lit with buzzing fluorescents and faintly reeking of burnt coffee. The kind of room where feelings come to die and only the paperwork survives. The judge, a stern older woman with eyes like melting icebergs and a deadpan expression that probably made grown lawyers cry at night, took her seat. She flipped through the preliminary filings. Marissa sat there grinning like she'd already won. Leon stood up and cleared his throat. "Your Honor, we're here to begin asset division. My client is legally entitled to." Russell rose calmly, his voice even. "Your Honor, before we move forward, we'd like to file a motion. We're contesting the classification of the listed assets." The judge glanced over her glasses. "On what grounds?" Russell handed her a thick packet, neatly stapled. "Several of the properties and accounts listed are no longer considered marital property, under both IRS guidelines and state law. Supporting documentation is all included." Leon blinked. Sorry. What?" The judge skimmed the top page. One of her eyebrows ticked upward by maybe 0.5 millimeter, but in that room, it was as loud as a gunshot. "Mr. Sandel," she said coolly, "were you aware that the lake house was transferred to a third-party trust over a year ago?" Marissa snapped her head around so fast, it looked like someone popped a rubber band at her skull. We were under the impression," Leon stammered. Russell cut in smoothly. "You were under the wrong impression." The judge held up the sheet. "This trust predates the separation by 14 months. Mrs. Callahan isn't a named beneficiary, and she made no financial contributions to its creation." Marissa finally found her voice. "What does that mean?" she asked, her words cracking just slightly near the end. It wasn't dramatic. The room didn't gasp, but I noticed it. First crack in the armor. The judge was flipping faster now, more engaged. "This account here," she said, pointing at another page, "Northbridge Development. Do you have proof of separate capital?" Russell nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. Fully verified." That LLC was funded entirely with post-tax earnings from my client's side consulting. It falls outside the scope of the marriage and predates any filing or formal dissolution by nearly 3 years. Leon muttered something weak. We'll need time to review. The judge tapped her pen. Granted. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks. Until then, both parties are prohibited from making any public statements regarding the case. She leaned back slightly. This is clearly more complicated than initially presented. Marissa looked at me like I'd just set the courthouse on fire. I didn't flinch, just stood up, buttoned my jacket, and gave her a polite little nod. You know the kind, like when a stranger almost crashes into you in a parking lot and pretends it didn't happen. Outside, I inhaled deeply. Russell lit up a cigarette and offered me one. I shook my head. He smiled. She had no idea, he said. She had brunch. I replied. Thought that counted as prep work. Back inside, I could see her tearing into Leon. Didn't need to hear a word. I recognized that tone. It was the same one she used when the landscaper missed a weed patch. That mix of frustration and disbelief that the universe wasn't playing by her script. This wasn't a shift in momentum. This was the tide pulling back just far enough to show who'd forgotten how to swim. The next morning, Marissa was pacing in her designer pajamas, barefoot in the kitchen, third espresso in hand, texting Trevor about maybe finally booking that Aruba trip. Her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Franklin and Kemp, CPA. She answered on speaker, flipping open her laptop at the same time. Franklin, please tell me this is good news. Like maybe I'm finally rich enough to buy a house with a yoga studio and ocean views. There was a pause. Too long. Just silence and the faint sound of someone typing in the background. Then, Marissa, you might want to sit down. Her smile didn't move, but her legs did. I'm fine, she said breezily. What's going on? Still smiling. Still pretending. But her body was already shifting, sliding toward the kitchen stool like gravity had decided for her. Franklin cleared his throat. We've started digging through everything, like you asked, matching joint accounts, tracking marital assets. But 2 of the major ones, well, they're off limits. He paused. To you anyway. What the hell does that mean? Marissa snapped, eyes wide, fingers frozen over her keyboard. One of the accounts, the one ending in 4762, is registered under an LLC out of Wyoming, Franklin said calmly. Ownership documentation lists your husband. You're not on it. That can't be right. We opened that account together, she said sharply. That was our joint portfolio. Franklin sighed, professional but already exhausted. That was your assumption. The funds were legally moved 18 months ago. He continued, voice like a spreadsheet. The account now belongs to a corporate entity. You aren't listed anywhere in that structure. Marissa blinked, her laptop screen still stuttering while loading a promo for a yoga retreat in Tulum. I'm sorry, she said slowly, like the words coming out of his mouth were in a foreign language. I don't understand. That money was restructured, Franklin cut in. Still polite, still cool. In full compliance with federal and state laws. He didn't stop. And the other account, the one tied to the boat, that's also under the LLC, as is the boat itself. Her whole body froze. The boat. Yes, he said. Your boat. Technically, it's his now. He delivered it with the warmth of an automated voicemail. The vessel is registered under Cobalt Ridge Holdings, which does not include your name. At all. The room went silent. Even the Nespresso machine gave up. Marissa's throat clicked as she swallowed. I paid for that boat's interior, she said quietly. I named it Serenity. You remember that? I do, Franklin replied. Just as flat. Just as unbothered. But the title was transferred months ago, after a formal evaluation and buyout. We've got it all on file. She stared at the marble backsplash like it had just insulted her. So, I can't touch it? No, not currently. There's no legal claim. The judge might take a look at it, but as it stands. She hung up before he finished. The phone clattered onto the kitchen island, and she just stood there, arms stiff at her sides, heart pounding against her ribs like it was trying to claw its way out. It was that strange, heavy feeling, like falling, but standing still. She called Leon. No answer. Called again. Nothing. Left a voicemail. Call me now. Emergency. Then, desperate, she texted Trevor. Marissa, change of plans. Might need to push Aruba. Trevor, what does that mean? Marissa, just a hiccup. Long story. Trevor, K. Gotta train a client. Hit you later. She sat down hard, like gravity had just remembered her name. Serenity. Gone. And the cabin? She hadn't even dared ask about that yet. But now, the question itself scared her. The swagger she had in court, the glow she wore after brunch, all those confident Instagram drafts with sunbeam filters and boss lady captions. They vanished like steam off a bathroom mirror, replaced by a slow, chilling realization. What if she never owned half of what she thought she did? Marissa had always believed power came from presence. Be loud, be seen, be wanted. But she never checked the vault. Never once wondered if the locks had changed. She never imagined I'd see her betrayal coming and prepare for it before she even made her move. She thought I'd cry in court. She didn't know I'd already emptied the accounts, changed every password, and burned the map. 2 years ago, she hadn't posted in 5 days. Might not sound like much to most people, but this was a woman who once uploaded 3 filtered selfies during a 35-minute teeth whitening session. For her, 5 days of silence was basically a blackout. No quotes about fresh starts. No cheeky new chapter captions. No boomerangs of clinking mimosas. Just nothing. And in her world, nothing was deafening. She noticed it first in her group chats. The same threads she used to dominate with breakup play-by-plays had moved on without her. Taryn dropped a meme about dating broke guys. Elena replied with a fire emoji and a laughing face. Marissa added a grinning emoji with the sweat drop. Nobody responded. She still showed up for brunch that Sunday. Of course she did. But this time, there were only 3 seats instead of 5. Taryn wouldn't meet her eyes. Elena stirred her oat milk latte like it held secrets. Marissa tried to steer the conversation back to Trevor. Elena finally looked up. You said he was moving in? Marissa straightened her back. We're just waiting on a few things. Timing and all. Taryn glanced at her phone. Didn't say a word. On her way out, Marissa passed 2 women seated at the next table. She caught a bit of their whispering. I thought she was the smart one said. The other replied, guess not. She played herself. That night, Marissa didn't sleep. She scrolled through old messages from friends who used to cheer her on with lines like, Queen, and he's gonna regret this. Now, nothing. Not even a pity like. It was like she'd been turned into a cautionary tale everyone quietly unfollowed. By Tuesday, even Trevor had shifted. He showed up late, gym bag slung over one shoulder, his shirt hugging his chest tighter than his enthusiasm. Marissa smiled half-heartedly. I was thinking, maybe we could go look at that place in Del Mar again? The one with the balcony? He scratched his neck, looked down at his sneakers. I've been thinking too. She stiffened. About what? About how you said we'd have a house by summer. Her jaw clenched. I didn't say this summer. You kinda did, he said. No, I didn't imply anything, Trevor. You know how divorce works. It takes time. He crossed his arms. It's been time, Trevor said, his voice flat but edged. You told me he was done, that you were going to clean him out. That line just hung there in the air, like the smoke from a blown fuse after the lights go out. Marissa tried to pivot. We can still build something. Build what? He snapped. I thought we were creating something real, not waiting on leftovers from your ex-husband's table. She shot back, fast and defensive. Oh, and what exactly do you bring to the table, Trevor? Besides a yoga mat and a playlist full of motivational garbage? That did it. He grabbed his gym bag without another word and walked out the front door. Let it slam behind him. She didn't chase him. Instead, she just stood there, right in the middle of the living room she used to parade all over Pinterest, surrounded by designer furniture and Instagrammable decor, and for the first time, it hit her. All of it had been borrowed. Rented, really. And the landlord had just come calling. She picked up her phone, checked her apps. No new messages. No likes. No comments. Just a silence that ran deeper than the one in her bank account. And somewhere out there, I knew she could feel me watching this unfold, slow, calculated, and silent, not lifting a single finger. Because I didn't have to. She was unraveling just fine on her own. The mediation room was beige and airless, the kind of place built to feel neutral, but ends up feeling hostile in the quietest possible way. No windows, no warmth, no comfort. Marissa sat on one side of the table, legs crossed, a yellow legal pad in front of her. Still blank. Her new blouse was a little too tight, trying a little too hard to scream composure. But her expression gave her away. She was teetering somewhere between forced calm and the quiet kind of panic that hadn't quite decided whether to crack or explode. I sat across from her. Calm. No performance. Russell was beside me, along with another associate from his firm, young, serious, the kind of guy who could probably unravel a pension plan in his sleep. No smugness. No victory lap. Just business. I wore a plain blue button-down, wireframe glasses, and kept flipping through a tabbed folder like I was organizing weekend fishing licenses. The mediator was a tired man with a haircut overdue by about 2 weeks. He opened with boilerplate language, the kind designed to keep emotions at bay. Marissa wasn't listening. She kept glancing at me, searching. For what? I don't know. A tell? A weakness? Some sign that I'd cave? She found nothing. Russell leaned forward, measured and steady. We'd like to start by presenting a full timeline of asset restructuring, he said. Everything legal, notarized, and filed through proper channels. Leon blinked, confused. A timeline. Russell slid a binder across the table like it was the final move on a chessboard. Every financial action Mr. Callahan took has been documented. There's a chronological index starting 2 years ago, property transfers, title amendments, trust formations, corporate structures. It's all in there. Marissa's eyes narrowed. This isn't a trial, she said, trying to sound firm. Russell nodded politely. Correct. But it is a formal mediation, and we're permitted to provide context surrounding contested assets. Leon flipped open the binder and started skimming. His lips parted, then closed again. This LLC, he muttered. You dissolved it? Merged it into a trust. I replied, calm as ever. 3 months before separation. Fully evaluated, independently. All filings time-stamped and legal. And the cabin? Leon asked, still trying to keep pace. I looked right at him. Transferred to our son through a generational skip trust. 9 months before she brought up divorce. Miles holds full legal title now. Marissa whipped her head toward me. You gave the cabin to Miles? I held her gaze, my voice even. No. I protected it from you. There's a difference. Her jaw shook. You're insane. Russell raised a hand, calm as ever. Let's keep this civil, Mrs. Callahan. She turned to Leon, furious. You didn't tell me about any of this. Leon looked like a man who'd walked into what he thought was a poker night and found himself in front of a firing squad. This wasn't disclosed. We didn't see this during discovery. Russell gave a faint, patient smile. That's because you asked for the wrong documents. I slid another folder across the table. Smaller. Deep green. Clean. Marissa stared at it like it might explode. Inside were receipts from legal consultations going back 2 full years. Title histories. Asset movement records. Trust formation paperwork. And right on top was a notarized letter from Miles. She picked it up and started reading. Then her face went pale. My father told me years ago to prepare for this. I can confirm he walked me through every step with clarity and calmness. I was not pressured or manipulated into accepting any assets. I wanted no part in the financial war my mother was trying to start. Her hand dropped the letter like it burned. You dragged Miles into this, she hissed. I looked at her. Still steady. Still calm. No, I said. You did. You did, I said. When you started telling people I was losing everything. You could hear Leon swallow. That's how quiet it got. The mediator cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. Given the volume and weight of documentation presented, I'd recommend a short recess before moving on to settlement discussions. Marissa didn't flinch, didn't speak. She just sat there, eyes locked on the stack of papers in front of her like she was trying to will the numbers to change. Like maybe if she stared long enough, the timeline would unravel, the trust would vanish, and the story she told herself would magically reassemble. But the truth was sitting there in black and white. Cold, methodical, and permanent. While she was out curating a persona, I was laying bricks, quietly. A wall she couldn't scale, and now, with the drawbridge up, all her leverage was somewhere at the bottom of that moat, soaked and useless. She hadn't been back to the old house in weeks. After that mess in mediation, she'd holed up in a rented condo near a strip mall, convincing herself it was temporary, just until the courts sorted things out. She kept the shutters closed, rage-scrolled Zillow like it was therapy, and had wine delivered like it was blood in the veins. But something cracked that morning. Something brittle. Maybe it was the silence from Leon. Maybe it was Trevor's text the night before. Think we should take a break? Or maybe it was that dream she had. Me standing in the foyer of the house while she pounded on the locked glass, screaming to be let in. Whatever it was, she drove out there. The lawn was trimmed. The hedges neat. A new wreath hung on the front door, something cheerful, seasonal. It pissed her off. She marched up the walkway like she still owned the land under it and rang the doorbell hard. Nothing at first. Then footsteps. A woman in her 30s answered. Yoga pants, toddler on her hip. A man came up behind her, carrying a box labeled garage stuff. They looked surprised, not threatened. Can I help you? The woman asked, polite but cautious. Marissa blinked. This is my house. The woman gave her a sympathetic smile. Oh, you must be the previous owner. We just closed on it last week. What? Marissa gasped. The man stepped in, calm but clear. We bought it from a private trust. Name was Ironwood. We didn't realize the former owner would be stopping by. Marissa's heart started hammering. No, this house. It's in my name, she stammered, pulling out her phone like it could prove her claim to the past. There has to be some mistake. The woman adjusted the kit on her hip. We have the deed in our paperwork. Everything's clear. Maybe check with your realtor? Marissa didn't answer. She didn't have a realtor. She turned and practically fled down the walkway, got in her car, and sat there shaking. The dash clock read 10:27 a.m. She scrolled to my name. Called. I picked up on the second ring. Marissa. Her voice wobbled. What did you do? I didn't ask who it was. Didn't need to. Didn't ask what she meant, either. It was never yours, I said, cool and quiet. Check the deed history. Then I hung up. No malice. No gloating. Just truth delivered with surgical precision. She pulled up the county site, searched the address, tapped through. Deed holder? Silver Pine Heritage Trust. Transfer date? 8 days ago. Authorized by N. Callahan, trustee. She dropped the phone into her lap. That house, the one she loved to flaunt. The kitchen she redesigned. The wine cellar she built bottle by bottle. The backsplash I retiled twice because the first blue was too nautical. Gone. Not disputed. Not split. Sold. To strangers. She sat in that car for over an hour. Engine off. Eyes wide. Barely blinking. Neighbors walked their dogs past her like she was a parked delivery truck. Nobody waved. In her head, the version of the story she'd written cracked like glass under pressure. No house. No cabin. No boat. No Trevor. No brunch squad. No likes. No camera-ready life. Just Marissa. Alone. Watching everything she thought was nailed down vanish quietly, efficiently, one lock at a time. The final meeting was held in a law office that smelled like leather, old paper, and inevitability. Marissa got there 10 minutes early, probably to feel like she still had some kind of control. She wore a scarf, 76 degrees outside. Her makeup was lighter than usual. Not styled, just an attempt to cover the fatigue. They brought her into a glass-walled conference room. 2 stacks of papers sat at the center of the table, untouched. 1 carafe of water. Nobody drinking it. I was already there. No smile. No triumph. Just a nod. The kind I used to give when someone thanked me for taking out the trash or fixing the sprinklers. She sat. Russell didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The paperwork said everything. Final settlement. No spousal support. No joint assets awarded. No claims moving forward. She'd keep the leased Lexus, registered in her name, and whatever was left in her personal account. Barely 5 figures now, thanks to 2 months of illusion maintenance and some impulsive spending. Her lawyer leaned over and whispered, "We can contest this. There's still a path." But even he didn't sound convinced. He sounded tired, ready to be done. Marissa flipped to the last page and stopped. Right above the signature line, in bold type and clean legal ink, was one final condition. All public statements, posts, and media referring to Mr. Callahan must be deleted within 72 hours of signing. Failure to comply will nullify all settlement terms. She looked up, blinking. "You can't be serious," she muttered. "You want me to erase everything?" I nodded once. Calm. Every caption, every hashtag, every champagne glass victory selfie. Her throat caught. "But those were my words. And now," I said, "they're your price." The room didn't explode. It didn't need to. The silence was enough. Thick, oppressive. Not dramatic. Just final. The kind of silence that doesn't ask for permission. It just settles over everything. She looked down at the pen, picked it up like it was heavier than it should have been. Her hand hovered, shaking slightly. Like maybe there was still a trap door she hadn't noticed. There wasn't. She signed. Her lawyer murmured something, probably procedural, but she didn't register it. Russell calmly gathered the documents. I stood. No handshake. No last words. Just a glance at her. Flat. Unreadable. Then I walked out the door with the papers in hand, and the future already waiting in the passenger seat. She didn't follow. She stayed there for a while, I'm told, until the receptionist had to poke her head in gently and remind her they needed the room back. She nodded, gathered her purse, left like someone moving in slow motion. Outside, the sky wasn't stormy. It wasn't even interesting. Just gray. She climbed into the Lexus, sat there, then pulled up Instagram, and one by one, deleted them. The post with the "divorced at last" bottle with popping cork hashtag freedom looks good on me caption. The filtered selfie with he's losing everything, I'm gaining peace. The one of her and Trevor on the beach, finally living the life I deserve. Each post vanished with a single tap. Each one took something with it. And when she was done, she sat there and stared at the blankness. And finally saw it. She had built a version of herself for the internet, for the brunch table, for the applause, and none of it had ever really existed. Now even that was gone. Miles' son was turning 5. Birthday party was in his backyard, nothing fancy. Folding tables, paper plates, streamers strung between trees. A cake shaped like a fire truck that clearly came from a grocery store, and a playlist full of Disney songs on low volume. It was real. It was warm. And it was enough. Marissa stood near the punch bowl in a navy sweater I hadn't seen her wear since before the split. Smiled when she had to. Complimented the food. Stayed out of frame whenever someone raised a phone. But I saw her watching the gate. Waiting. Then I walked in. Same jacket I wear for Sunday errands. Gift bag in hand. Plain red. No bows, no theatrics. Miles spotted me first. Dad. We hugged. Tight. Simple. Unforced. The kind that hits a little different when you know what it costs to still have that relationship. Marissa saw it. I could feel the weight of her eyes. It hit her harder than anything that had come before. Because this wasn't money. This wasn't court. This was real. And it was mine. I bent down and handed the gift to my grandson. This one's from Grandpa. He tore it open, kid style, no hesitation. A carved wooden train set, polished smooth, initials etched into the underside. Made it myself, during one long winter at the cabin. I saw Marissa's expression shift when she realized it. That I hadn't bought something flashy. That I had built something lasting. Miles came up beside me, handed me a folder. For the trust, he said quietly. Just updates from the accountant. I nodded. Thanks for keeping it moving. Always, he said. I caught Marissa watching. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but I think, in that moment, she didn't know which version of herself would speak. The fighter? The victim? The one who had it all? Or the one who lost the thread? I opened the folder. On top was a printed letter. She couldn't read it, but I knew she could feel it. Because Miles had read it. And I'd written it for him. And whoever came next. To my grandson and any future heirs. This trust ensures that what I've built stays in the family. It's not about punishment. It's about protection. Your legacy should be earned, not gambled. Not diluted by people passing through, or chasing something shinier. It wasn't cruel. It was clean. It was clear. She stood there holding a warm cup of lemonade, in a backyard full of people she used to claim as hers. But now, they were smiling in conversations she wasn't part of. They weren't being rude. They just moved on. And she knew it. She hadn't just lost the boat, or the lake house, or the carefully curated Pinterest life. She'd lost the future. The one she assumed she was still invited to. I knelt and whispered something to my grandson. Just enough to make him giggle. Then I stood up. No ceremony. No announcements. I walked out through the same gate I'd come in. No look back. No goodbye. Because the chapter had already closed. This was just the epilogue. She stayed behind. Alone. The party carried on. Streamers fluttered. Cake was sliced. And somewhere in the noise, I imagined she heard her own words from months ago echoing back. He's the one losing everything. But now, no one was laughing. Not even her.